Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Vladimíra Pohodalcová, and I'm responsible for Program and Urban Development Department here in CIKE, Creative Industry Košice. Thanks to CIKE, it's my pleasure today introduce you an extraordinary expert, Esko Reinikainen from Finland, who is very well experienced in artificial intelligence systems, and today he will uncover even more, unlock some secrets about the AI. So, ladies and gentlemen, Esko.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, everyone. Good morning, Košice. Let's check if everybody's awake. Who knows who is Stan Mikita? Okay. Who knows who is Andrej Karpathy? Really? Yeah, one. Okay. Both of these people are Slovak Canadians, and both of them might show up. How many of you have used an artificial intelligence tool before? All of you. How many of you use them every day? Okay, good audience. I hope I'm going to teach you something new. Even the taxi driver who brought me from the airport to the hotel last night, he is using it every day. So I think we've arrived. So today, well, this is the first presentation about kind of a foundational understanding around generative artificial intelligence. And are some of you staying afterwards? There's a workshop on the prompt engineering. Hands? Okay. More or less same crew. Cool. So in that workshop part, we'll learn the basics about prompt engineering, which is essentially some skills to get better results from this new range of tools. And my goals are like, we'll check if this was successful, if you feel more comfortable with this technology at the end of the day, and some of the fears go away and you feel more confident to use those tools and you start getting better results. If any or all of that happens, then I think we call it a victory. The story starts on 30th of November 2022, exactly the day. This was the moment of explosion. ChatGPT 3.5 is released, and it starts the democratization of AI. Before this date, you had to be a PhD in machine learning and in some research institution to really have access to artificial intelligence tools. After this day, anybody can have it. And it was a basic instruction following text completion AI with basic chat functionality available to everybody through a web interface. And you can talk to it using your own language. You don't have to put code or mathematics or things like that. So that's what I mean by the democratization of it. And in the background, you can see some images like the printing press and the plow and silicon chips and the internet. And we're pretty confident now that this technology is a technology on the scale of these other things which changed everything, socioeconomic systems. Can you remember the life before the internet? Can you imagine the life without the internet? So there's before and there's after, and we are now in the after. We're in the very beginning of the after, and we're all trying to learn and make sense, like how do we do this? What can it do? What it is? And since 2022, so it's like 2.5 years since this moment happened, these tools get new capabilities. There's an explosion of models. On November 2022, we had one, ChatGPT 3.5. There's now like 1.5 million of them. It's commoditized technology. It's a specialized, the models are becoming specialized for particular tasks, and it's getting embedded everywhere. How many people here use WhatsApp? Yeah, open your WhatsApp. Just look at the main page where you see like all your chats. What does it say in the window at the top now? Yeah, mine says, do you want to search Meta AI for something? It's everywhere. It's in Photoshop, it's in my email program, the document. When I was making the slides, the AI kept saying, do you want me to help you? So some of the images are made by the AI in this. And in terms of like where we are in the technological progress, if November 2022 was a stone wheel, we're somewhere in the middle here. You know, we've got to the wagon wheel technology. but we're going to Formula One wheels sometime in the future. Or another way to think about it is, do you remember when you had this phone? And if when you had this phone, I had told you what your today's phone could do, you would have thought I was completely crazy, right? But this is kind of where we are on the progress. And these new technologies require new literacies. So I didn't know anything about this stuff before November 2022, but I've been learning very deeply, and my role is to kind of mediate this knowledge with various groups. So we're formulating an idea of an AI literacy ladder. How do you go from zero knowledge to being performant in these? And this is evolving all the time. So we think we need some basic foundational knowledge. How does this, what's really going on with this stuff? How does it work? Not super scientific, but basic. Then we need skills in prompt engineering. How do we craft instructions to the machine so that we get good results? A new entry in this list is model selection, because there are so many different models that have so many different functions and features. Knowing which tool to take out of the toolbox for your particular task is quite important. Next is retrieval augmented generation. This is kind of using your own documentation and data with these tools. Now, because there's new functionality, so tool use and agent creation. How can you craft prompts to compose or configure an AI to do the particular task that you want to do, and then use tools to help it achieve those. Next, pretty high up is fine-tuning. So can I take a model and retrain it for specifically my purpose, like my office AI, which knows my documents and knows what tasks I have and is optimized to perform those kind of things. Like I myself, I think I'm like maybe 2 weeks away from being able to do fine-tuning. I wouldn't dare to teach it yet, but it's now user-friendly enough. There's multiple systems that can help me do that. I don't need the PhD in machine learning. And then agentic pipeline. So we'll talk about agents, but the next thing that's coming is composing constellations of agents that talk to each other and do very complex tasks. Today, we're just going to be in the first two and maybe talking a little bit about model selection. So what is an LLM? Does anybody know? It's 2 files. LLM is 2 files. One is a very big file, which contains a lot of data. And this is like the expensive thing, you know, when they say it costs billions of dollars to train an AI. This big file contains nowadays basically the entire internet. If you want to build your own model, there is a file available on the internet. It's 44 terabytes, which is essentially a distillation of the entire internet minus pornography and all kinds of things that we don't care about in these things. And then there's a tiny file, and this is the code that basically runs the instructions against this big data set and gives you the results that you want. And these are getting more and more and more elaborate, but compared to the big file, this is a very little file. Like, it can be a few megabytes only for some of the simple ones. So here's some examples of them. I think by now you've probably used a few of them. Actually, let's do a test. How many people have used ChatGPT? How many have used Claude? Notebook LM? Oh, really? Oh, that's going to blow your mind. Grok? Okay, so you're all basically ChatGPT users. The world is so much more interesting now. We're going to fix this problem. Mistral? French one? Because now we think, should we use American and Chinese models? We have French ones. Okay, you're all GPT users. How are they made? 3 steps. Pre-training. This is where all of this data is kind of collected and then filtered to take away, you know, the things that we don't need or want, and then tokenized. It's kind of converted from text data into tokens. We'll talk about that in a minute. Then there's supervised fine-tuning, and this is where human labelers, kind of with this data set, start training it on particular examples. They actually say, if I ask you this, this is the kind of answer I would like. And there are armies of professional people who are doing this, and they have created training data sets, which you can use now. Originally, they were very expensive, only available to big companies, but you can use these training sets now. And this is where this big data set kind of learns how to be a conversational assistant to you, how to engage with you in a dialogue. And then later, there's reinforcement learning. This is kind of automated machine learning stuff where you sort of give it a task, make the model run it 12 million times, and start selecting which are the most promising answers for it. So it's a kind of refinement process, but this is entirely automated. And this is where the model starts to learn to reason. And reasoning models are something we've seen in the last 2 months. Right? It was a thing that people were attempting to force models to do through prompt engineering, and now we're getting reasoning models. Models that on their own are able to interpret your request and say, actually, I need to think this through a little bit. So we're like in the first few months of reasoning models. Once you've got a foundation model, or the big ones are called frontier models, but there's a foundation model, you yourself can do additional things to it. So RLHF is reinforcement learning with human feedback, and that's a technique to make a model more accurate to a particular kind of use case. Distillation is a process that makes them smaller. So for example, you can run it on your own hardware. And fine-tuning, as mentioned before, is optimizing an existing model for your particular use case. So one day you will have CK AI, which will be built and distilled and fine-tuned from one of the existing models. So who's making these? Well, the first one, OpenAI, they were first to market. You are all using it. And the advantage of being first to market is that it's the most feature complete. It can do the most different things. It can search the web, it can generate images. Now there's even true audio, so you can talk to it and it'll talk back to you. The middle layer, this is logo recognition test. So Gemini, Microsoft Copilot, Meta Llama, these are the big tech companies. They're also making models. And then on the bottom, maybe you don't recognize those, but that's Perplexity, Grok, DeepSeek, Mistral, and Anthropic. They're startup companies that are also building foundation models. And the race is on, like, I think when DeepSeek arrived a few months ago, are you familiar with DeepSeek? Yeah, Chinese model first with reasoning capabilities. It was a shockwave through the world because the Americans were trying to say, this training thing is very, very expensive, you know, and you need big resources like in America in order to be able to do it. And the Chinese said, well, actually, we can do it for much cheaper and we can add additional capabilities. So I think who wins this game, we don't know yet. Currently, OpenAI is still pretty much the benchmark that everybody's acquiring, but for other use tasks like Perplexity, for example, I use it when I do web searching tasks because it was the first AI model that was built around web searching capability. Right, now we're going to fundamental concepts. So key characteristics of LLMs. They are probabilistic. It's trying to figure out what the next word you want, given its knowledge, the context you've given it, and the instruction that you give it. It doesn't know anything, right? It has an enormous amount of data, and it's got a vague memory on it, and depending on your instructions, it's running probability math to predict what's the next most correct token. Right? So there's no right answers. So it's non-deterministic or stochastic, if that's your preferred kind of science language. And it's a token prediction simulator. So if you give it prompts, are you familiar with the poem Jack and Jill? Maybe this is not Slovak cultural appropriate, but Jack and Jill went up the hill, each with a bucket and pail and a quarter, whatever. So if you put Jack and Jill went, and just leave it that, you're not asking it anything, you're just asking it to complete, it will find, it'll go to the data set, and most of the times I've seen Jack and Jill, the next 3 words were up the hill, so it will complete that, right? Tokens. The language of AI models is a thing called a token, and I'm going to show you exactly what that is. So each token is, word in the English language is about 1.3 tokens. And this is the currency of, it's like the unit of information that an AI model uses, and it's also the currency. So depending on which model you choose, there will be a price per token. And later when we get into thinking about how to use these things very efficiently, we want to calculate a little bit. What am I trying to do, and what is the cost in terms of token? That might be money cost according to the provider, or energy cost. Maybe I arrive at a way to do something, but when I calculate it all, it's supremely energy inefficient. So I don't actually want to do this using an AI tool. So Hamlet has like 29,500 words, that's 38,000 tokens. And now there are new kinds of tokens. So generally it's text tokens, but now if you start using tool use, there are special tokens which invoke tool use. And in the reasoning models, there are also reasoning tokens, which, because it's such a new part of the field, they're not immediately transparent. But let me give you an example. Can we see that? Okay, so I'm going to do and Jack and Jill. So, oh, that's a terrible example. Okay, here we're looking at the GPT-4o model, and it almost exactly splits down the text into, apart from mammal is not mammal, it's mama and al, 2 tokens. This is how the AI sees what you're seeing. And it's actually a sequence of numbers. This is what it's doing the operations on. And it costs, this entry costs 7 tokens. Let's see what happens with another model, llama. That model splits it slightly differently. So here we can see fast est is 2 different tokens, that one word, and mam-al is the same. It's 9 tokens. So different models split text in slightly different ways. Let's see if strawberry. I can't even spell it. Strawberry, starberry. Strawberry is 3 tokens, st, raw, berry. And I'll put an example later, like these models are terrible at math. And so if you ask it how many R's are in strawberry, the answer is 3, but it usually answers 2. Because it doesn't know the concept of strawberry as one entity. It thinks of strawberry as 3 different tokens, and it's not capable of mathematics unless you force a math-using function on it. So here we go. And this is the links and everything here. It's available to you afterwards, so you can have a play. And I do recommend that you play. This is a really good way of starting to understand, like, we process text as humans in a particular way, but the AI models use this tokenization way to get a sense of what it's thinking, what it's seeing and thinking. Right, back to slideshow. Context window, who knows what that is? Okay, this is very important. The context window is essentially like the memory of a model, how many characters it can handle at a particular time. And the first model, GPT 3.5, had a context window of 8,000. All right, if I'll show that later. 8,000 tokens. When it runs out of context window, it stops remembering what happened before. So in terms of you using it, it'll appear to become stupid or forget what this conversation was all about. And that leads to the first good practice. It's when you're using AI, you might have ChatGPT open and still have a chat going on and then start a new query. That's bad practice because your context window is already partially filled. So good practice is to always start a new chat when you've got a new task. Start with a clean context window. And how context window is calculated, it's a combination of what you put in to the model, your prompt is calculated, and then the response is also calculated. So if my prompt is 100 tokens long and the response is 300 tokens, I've used 400 tokens. In the beginning, the models seemed quite stupid because they had very small context windows, like 8,000 tokens. It's not that much. I just had to update this slide. It used to say between 8,000 and 200,000. The new Gemini models have 2 million token context window. So like the evolution of the technology is addressing this limitation in some way. But I think you still want to be aware of what is your token consumption if you want. And some of the more performant models, like the new reasoning models, the cost per token, it's, like for a basic model, it can be something like €1 for 10 million tokens. For some of the newer models, it can be like €50 for 10 million tokens. So when you start thinking about the economics of using these models, it's important to have a sense of how many, what's your token consumption. Also, when crafting prompts, you want to be the most efficient possible. So if there's 5 different ways of presenting my instruction to a model, the one that uses the least tokens is the most efficient one, and that's what I should be aiming for. Memory. This is kind of a new concept because GPT, for example, in a logged-in user account has a feature called memory, and what it's doing is it's remembering, like if you're a fan of a sports team and you say it in one chat, it'll store that in this memory, and later on if you have a new chat and you're talking about sports teams or, can I go watch a match or something, it'll remember what your preferences are. Also, the concept, while we're talking about memory, is it's useful to think about this thing, which we can easily personify, he, she, it's an it. But it has, on this big file, it doesn't have instant recall and direct access to everything. It has a vague memory. So when I prompt something about recipes, it'll say, there's like cooking data over here, and it'll orientate the search in its data models towards the cooking things. And that's kind of an interesting or useful concept to understand, because when you're trying to steer a model in a particular direction, understanding the fact that it has a vague memory. And this is something I've learned from Andrej Karpathy, Slovak-Canadian guy. And later on, I have some links. You can watch his videos. You don't know who Andrej Karpathy is? Oh my goodness, you know. So he was one of the original engineers at OpenAI, and he also then ran Tesla's Vision AI division, and now he makes the best videos on how to understand this stuff, because he's been there from the beginning and building them. And he even has a series on YouTube where he takes you step by step how to build your own model, like really. From zero. Take this data set, do that, run this program, and you build your own AI. He's probably one of the best AI educators in the world, and he's born in Bratislava, so you should know him.
But can he score the goal or not? We are hockey nation.
Yeah. Okay. My other Slovak is coming. Yeah.
This is the difference why we don't know.
Yeah, okay. Okay, prompt engineering. So this is it sounds clever, prompt engineering. It's just about learning techniques and strategies and develop. It's a practice and a skill of crafting good instructions to these models. The first time you used ChatGPT, probably, I don't know, you were like, write me a poem about Kosice in the style of Leonard Cohen, because that's what you saw, like examples. That's pretty banal, Do you want the tool to do something quite sophisticated? Do you want to engage into like reflective thinking and stuff? So this prompt engineering is a skill set, if you want, that helps you get better results from the AI. And for example, in image generation, most people who generate images from AI, myself included, because I'm not super into the visual creation side, get bad pictures because they don't know how to ask an AI to give a good one. Like putting tags like I want aspect ratio 4:3, and I wanted photorealistic, and I want it in a style of Magnum photographers, or all of these things are necessary to get the kind of results you see when you look at a website. It's like, oh my God, what these tools can do, they're amazing. Well, those are very skilled prompt engineers who are getting those kind of results. And we'll practice on text. I'm sure you're all familiar with hallucinations. and this goes down to the fact that this is like a token prediction simulator. It doesn't know anything. It's just trying to please you with some probability math given the first words you've given and to complete it. So you could say it's a feature, not a bug. But it's actually getting very difficult to demonstrate hallucinations because the models are getting so good with this reinforcement learning, with human feedback and these refining techniques. They're getting really good. And yesterday I was at Vienna airport, like trying a few things, like can I show an example to provoke a hallucination? And we'll try it in the workshop later. And I was really struggling because the models are so good, they're kind of catching me. And prompt engineering techniques like chain of thought were developed in order to overcome the hallucination problem, and now models are being built with that chain of thought. Like reasoning models are basically doing chain of thought within the model, the small file. And so they hallucinate a lot less. And I think that's also an interesting observation that what people are doing with the AI is being listened to by the model builders, and they're starting to build the functionalities that people want as expressed with how they're prompting. So, but still, watch out, and there's like a big warning sign. Do you know who Schwartz, the New York lawyer, was? I'm trying to get everybody to learn the idea of Schwartz's law. Right? He was the lawyer who went to court and asked GPT to write a legal argument for him, and he presented it directly to the court. And the judge says, I'm not sure about this. Can you show me the case law? So he went back to GPT and said, give me the case law. And GPT very happily produced 3 case laws, and it made it all up. These cases don't exist. There was no web search involved. And he took those and presented to the court. And the judge had a look at those and said, I looked through my entire law library and I've never seen these. They're not mentioned anywhere. And then the lawyer said, oh yeah, I asked ChatGPT. Well, he brought a major hallucination to a court, and well, that's not okay, right? So Schwartz's law is never take the output of an AI model without checking it first for accuracy or domain expertise. And these systems are so seductive that people are skipping that step, right? Being lazy, right? And that's really like a discipline that you have to build into yourself. I've done it in the past, to my shame. I'm pretty good at never doing it again, but that's not something that comes naturally. It's kind of an instinct you have to fight because the output is so compelling. You're like, yeah, my blog post is ready. Publish, and then all the comments come in saying this AI garbage is no good. Zero shot prompting is where you just give a question, an instruction to the thing, and you don't give it any kind of contextual information or example of what you want. And for some use cases that's okay, but for others it doesn't. So the example is if I ask, where's Paris? Depending on where the vague memory of the thing is in the data, it might say, Paris is in Texas, which is true. There is a Paris in Texas, but it's not the Paris I was thinking about, because I'm a European. So few-shot prompting is where you give it an example of what you expect the answer to be. And this is what fine-tuning essentially is when you get later. You're giving it with a data set saying, when I say this, this is what I want. When I say this, this is what I want. When I say this. So I could say Rome is the capital of Italy. Where is Paris located? Paris is located in France. It's the capital. So I'm framing its vague memory to think of European capitals. And now when I ask the question, it'll give the kind of answer that I want. Chain of thought was the first approach to try to provoke models to think through what they're saying. Because quite often, early days, you asked a question and then you had to say to the model, like, that's not true, right? The standard question was, what is the fastest marine mammal? And it would say, a mako shark is the fastest marine mammal. And then you say, is that a mammal? No, mako shark is not a mammal, it's a shark. Fish. Is it a fish? My biology is... Anyway, okay, so if mako shark is not a mammal, what is the fastest marine mammal? And it'd say, tuna is the And you have to start like coaching it to start saying, from now on, I don't want you to mention anything that's not a mammal, like feeds milk to its babies. And then you can get it to say, oh, the blue whale the orca is the fastest marine mammal. So this evolves this chain of thought reasoning where you ask it things like, here is a complex request, take it step by step. Before you give me the answer, check whether you think the answer you have given me is reasonable or not. And now the new reasoning models have this capability built into them. Agents, has anybody made an agent? Or like, you're all GPT users, have you made a GPT? A few of you, okay. So an agent is essentially like, it's giving parameters to an AI to act in a particular way and have particular goals. So if I start, and in GPT, when you make GPTs, that's the instruction thing. Or in other models, it's called the assistant prompt or the system prompt. Different vendors have different language for it, but it's essentially a holding there. Like, for everything I ask you, this must be true. So you are a strategic economist, and what that does is it sort of helps the model go into the part of its memory, its vague memory, which is relevant to the following instructions that you're going to ask. And for a while, like maybe in 2023, there was a big debate about what really is an agent, and the consensus view was an agent is an AI that can react. Is reason, so it's either got chain of thought going on in there, and act is tool use, take actions. And now so this should be like basic literacy, I think, now. Setting up an AI to be in a context that's going to be useful for your next few requests. Now we're getting into the world where you have multiple different agents working together. So for example, if you're organizing a festival, if you write to an AI, organize me a music festival in Kosice, the answer you're going to get is garbage, right? Like completely unusable. But if you say, set up a programming agent, and dealing with a local government and licenses agent, and a technical infrastructure agent that are configured to specifically handle those things, and maybe you're doing some retrieval augmented generation, like putting in your technical catalog, things like that. And then you get an orchestrator agent, which is coordinating between all of these different. So you talk to the orchestrator, and it says, oh, that's a task for the programming agent, that's a task for the marketing agent. So this is like now the new frontier of it. So agents needs to be a basic kind of competence, because soon we're going into multi-agent coordinated frameworks. And this is the latest model context protocol. It's, I would say, in the last month. The question was, how do you get these agents to coordinate with each other? And a big problem was maintaining the context and the memory from one particular agent to another one. And there were competing schools of thought on how you should address this problem. And now Model Context Protocol has emerged as the winner, like in the last few weeks, I would say, maybe the last month. And it's a bit like, if you know the internet, TCP/IP is the protocol that transfers stuff between different machines on the internet. So it's the connective tissue and the glue. And now it is agreed that we have that. And it's an open protocol, and anybody can use it, and not one company owns it and stuff. So this will be like available for everybody. I don't know, we won't go any deeper into that, but we have this missing piece of the puzzle now, just recently. So this multi-agentic frameworks is really going to become big in the next few months. So what's some use cases? A good guy in Finland who was talking about business models for AI said it really well. It's either there are things that you already know how to do and you can leverage AIs or use AIs to do it faster, more efficiently, automate it, and become more productive. And it also gives you some capabilities that you didn't have before. So I'm not a technical person. I'm not a coder. I tried once to learn Python. It didn't work very well. But I can now produce Python scripts that actually work on my computer and do something because an AI tool can take me through it. This area is where you have to be very careful, right? Like we see in America, a lot of people doing things in domains which they clearly have no understanding of what they're doing, with very bad consequences, you know, like Elon Musk reforming government, kind of stuff. He's a good engineer. He has no idea how government public service works. So bad things happen. And this, it's like really careful. And AI can give you the idea that, no, I'm going to create a, you know, competitor to eBay or something because I've got my AI companion stuff. You need to have some understanding of what it's produced so you can evaluate whether this is useful or not. So it's a little bit of a danger area. It definitely can do it. Like I can produce images I could never do with Photoshop or anything like that. But be careful here. Where it shines is stuff you already know how to do. Use AI to do it faster, better, cheaper, more, what have you. And more specifically, use cases, so we all know text generation and completion. Summarization, very good. Feed it a big text and say what's the key points. Or take a scientific paper and say, explain it to me like I'm a high school student with no technical knowledge. Very good at that. Classification, if you need to sort things from translation, question answers. Brainstorming, it's great. And I'm going to show an example in the workshop later on. Data analysis, very good. That used to be quite expensive, you know, for a company. If you need to contract to a data analytics firm, maybe what you want to do is not affordable or within reach. Now you can do some of those things with the data analysis. Research, it's very good at. This is where you should be interested in Notebook LM. It is an AI specifically built for research. It processes resources and it does not hallucinate because that's not okay for research. And now we're seeing deep research. Maybe even depending on your subscription, you see a button in your AI that says deep research. This is a mixture of web searching and reasoning models. That's what deep research is. And if you're using GPT only, that's 200 euros per month, right? DeepSeek has deep research models you can use for free. Coaching, image and other media generation, and vibe coding. Vibe coding is where you say, give me a little program that makes the snake game on my web page. Guess who invented the phrase vibe coding? Andrej Karpathy. Right, so model selection. How do you choose, like currently you're all basically just going to ChatGPT, right? How many models are there? Well, currently 1,573 and 202. I also checked with the filters by languages. There's about 1,300 that are optimized for the Slovak language, right? And they have different kind of like text. So these, you know, when you're doing text inference, these are natural language processing kind of tasks. We've also got audio, vision models, and multimodal. We'll talk about multimodal and omnimodal at some point. So it used to be 1 year ago that to get the best result out of an AI, you just need to craft the best possible instruction for it. It's at prompt engineering level. Now, to get the best possible result, you need to pick the best, most suitable model for that. And this is an entire mind, like, this is getting a bit difficult, but like these are the top trending models on Hugging Face as of Sunday, was 6th of April. You might recognize some of these, like DeepSeek version 3, Meta, Llama. They were the first one to open source models, so they actually, you know, as nasty as Facebook is, in my opinion, they did something quite good in the world by releasing the first biggest foundational model. Let's look at a small subset of these. Like And the first models were instruction-following models. So if you see the word instruct in that, that's an instruction-following model. You might also see chat, which is the next iteration. It's a thing that's been kind of in its training to be made effective for conversational. You also see these numbers like 17B, 7B. This is billions of parameters. It's the size of the model in a sense, but it gives you an indication on what hardware you can use it. So 2 billion parameter model you can run on a very top-of-the-line modern phone, right? That's the hardware you need. You can run that model on your phone. If it's 7 billion, you can run it on pretty much any kind of laptop. I do flight simulators, so I have like pretty decent big graphic card PC rig. I can run up to 40 billion parameter models, and anything bigger than that, you need to be using servers on the internet, like big capacity. And the Google one is called Gemini, right? The release last week, Gemini 2.5, it's much better than ChatGPT for a lot of use cases. And then they do these kind of distillation smaller models. So Gemma is basically a shrunk-down version of the flagship Google model that you could run on your home computer. Now, this is a complete mess. The industry has not figured out a good way of labeling models, but you can see some like clues in the naming language. Or if there's something called GGUF, it's a particular format that is optimized for running on home hardware. And even GPT, right? Like when you go to ChatGPT, are you aware what model you're using? Like these are all of the releases. So even GPT-4 had this version, this version, this version, this version. Then they went into 4.0, which means Omni. This is something that can use multimodal, so like images and sound. It's got a number and an O, it means it's an Omni model, it's a multimedia. And then they've got O1, O2, O3, which very confusingly, these are reasoning models, right? So it's not different O than that O. So this naming convention is a mess, but you start getting new functionalities. You can also see the context window expanding. So we started at 4K, 8K, 16K, 128,000. 128,000 plus. That's fairly reasonable, but Gemini is 2 million. So these are baby numbers. And you can see as the models evolve, they're doing more capabilities. Now, right, this is probably what you see when you do ChatGPT. And I have a plus, like the 20 euro per month. So maybe if you're using free, I have more models. And the default is great from a GPT-4o. It's an Omni model. It's got the little microphone. I can throw it. I can add pictures and stuff like that. Here's another version of that with scheduled tasks. So if I want to give it a big workload, I don't want the answer immediately, but it'll queue it up to a server and then give me the result. GPT, these are quite small. Research preview. So there's this deep research button here, but this appears to be a research-oriented, so it'll be leaning heavily on the web search kind of tool. And then we start getting the reasoning models, and these can get quite expensive and more mini. So GPT is not GPT. GPT itself, and you'll notice this selection is a very small subset of the ones we saw on the previous slide. And that's why I have difficulty invoking the earlier models to provoke a hallucination, because they've kind of worked this stuff out. Right. I think this section is a bit boring, so let's go to something more interesting. Happy? Does anybody know who this is? Oh, no. Yeah. Okay, you're just too shy to say it then. So the best model is the cheapest, fastest, most performant model for your specific use case. and there's 1.5 million to choose from. So, in conclusion, my point is, if you're just going to ChatGPT, you're like using the first thing you see in the shop window, not the right tool. And this is something that I can't answer for you. You have to think about what's your use case and then do a bit of research which models are doing, and it's changing all the time. So the capabilities, well, the first ones, they're kind of obvious, but function calling, are you familiar with that? This is tool use. This is if I write, let's say I ask an AI to organize me some transport, like a tour, a trip, travel itinerary. So if I connect it to an API to Skyscanner or something, then it would be able to look where the flights are and what the price is and things. It doesn't have that knowledge in its model. There's a training cutoff date and it doesn't know anything. So give it the ability to connect to the internet and give it function calling, like look at transport APIs and bring me the kind of data I want. That's what function calling is. And because this is evolving so fast, the language is also a little bit indistinct, and sometimes we use different words. So tool use and plugins is essentially function calling. For a while at the beginning of the GPTs, they were saying plugins is the thing. Oh, now you can attach it to, I don't know, what's your favorite app that you use, like Bolt? Do you guys use Bolt taxis here? Yeah. So there's a Bolt plugin. It's basically a function calling. It's connected to the API so that you can use Bolt. Then we got web search, code analysis, ability to upload own documents. None of these were present at 3.5, right? So all of this has happened since 2022. Agents, multimodality means that now I can also accept voice and images, reasoning, omnimodality. So multimodality would be you have got a text AI which is interfacing with an image recognition AI, and then they're sort of like dialoguing. Omnimodality means that the AI model can actually naturally natively handle all of those things. So there's no transaction cost between putting an image and having an image processor send it to a text-based AI. The model can handle all of those, and that's why if you use the app on ChatGPT, you can start talking to it in pretty natural dialogue. It's not going through this step of saying what was heard. Well, there is. If you just press the button, it'll use the multimodality. It'll take a voice print, it'll turn it into text, and then do text processing. If you use the new funny squiggly icon, then you get into this conversational dialogue with it, and the audio capabilities are in there. And we've already covered in the memory deep research this model context protocol that gives us now the capability of multi-agent orchestration. This is quite high up the literacy ladder, and not really within the scope of today. But basically the tools the AIs are able to use, when we talk about an agent, it is able to reason and use tools. These are the tools it's able to use. And now, what interface do you use it? Because you're all ChatGPT users, I think you have in your head that you go to a web page, and it gives you a chat box, and that's how you interact with an AI. And all of the providers, Anthropic, they do the Claude one, Gemini, they all provide their own web interface for that, and the capabilities of that model will be represented in what you can do. That's the most restrictive way of using it. There's a lot more you can do with the models, but they make choices about what you can do on their particular web interface. So there's also a new class of interfaces called inference playgrounds, and it can be a web page or it can be a program you put on your computer, and it allows you to select the model that you want for a given task. So you might be doing a piece of work and say, now I really need code completion, so I put in the best code generation model for that particular task. And then for more geeky people, you can do it on the command line. There's now frameworks for doing that, like Olama, and if you build your own applications or your own code in Python, you can reach into the models using API. calls. So to give you an idea, this is the Hugging Face inference playground, and you can see on this side there's the model, so I can click the drop down and just say, now I've got a task that needs reasoning capability, so I'll select a reasoning model for that. Or now I want to run a very simple text query, but I want to do it 1,000,000 times. So I want the fastest, cheapest, just text. I don't need any of the fancy stuff on that. And I've got new controls here. So temperature, a simple way of saying it is how creative the model is. You know, lower temperature means when you're going into your vague memory, I want you to really be specifically pulling out pieces of information. And if I set a high temperature, then it's like, you can get creative, you know, like find data that was around that in constructing your answer. Or you can limit the tokens in the response if you're kind of max tokens for the response should be 2048 or 2 million. You know, like, do I want a summarization paragraph, or do I want an in-depth report about some economic statistics that I have fed it to the machine? And it also allows you to do things like systems prompt. This is, you know, the prompt that creates the agent. You are my PR assistant. Your job is to take content I give you and give me Instagram-sized posts or what have you. So these inference playgrounds, like once you're done and you get frustrated with your first port of call, the ChatGPT webs, then you want to start looking at inference playgrounds that allows you to swap and choose models according to your particular use case. And most of these are free, right? So that's this, Google AI Studio has one. Their UX is terrible because it's Google and they don't know how to do UX, but it's got basically the same stuff. And they do things like count the amount of tokens that you're doing. So you get like a more high-resolution picture of what's going on in your interaction with these models. But I recommend Hugging Face. How are we doing? I think we're nearly coming to the end. So what's some good practice? The first one is task decomposition. Once you get over the magic of writing some text to a machine and getting this, like, you know, Leonard Cohen poetry coming back at you, then you want to start doing it for things that actually mean something to your work or your life. And soon you will realize that if you have the more specific you can label, you can make the task instruction, the better result you're going to get. So don't make me a festival, say, give me a marketing plan for this festival which has these acts that's trying to get this audience, right? There you're going to get a better result. So this just idea of like, what am I trying to do and what is the smallest unit of task I can assign to the machine? Choose the right tool for the right job. And if most of you are still just going to the ChatGPT website, bad news, you're most probably not using the best tool for the job. I mean, you're using a pretty good one, which is fairly feature complete. It can do most of the things that you would want it to do. But for example, if you want to feed 15 articles to a machine and get it audio podcast that talks about all of the content while you're doing your jogging in the morning, ChatGPT can't do that very effectively. NotebookLM can do it, all right? If you want to do really robust web search, Perplexity is much better because it's an AI that was built with the only idea of being the most effective web search kind of AI. So choose the right tool for the right job. Evaluate, evaluate, evaluate. These things are seductive. Even you go to a new tool and you're like, wow. The first time you hear a podcast of some article, academic journals that you put up, you're like, wow, that's completely crazy. But is it good? Right? And what can you do to make it better and don't get seductive? Like one of the problems, I don't have it in here, is called AI slop. Right? AI slop is unwanted content that's produced by an AI and becomes kind of data garbage in the internet. You probably have in your doom scrolling or however you do your information feeds come across some blog or article, and when you were reading it, you're like, this doesn't make any sense, or it's not very good, or it's poorly written. It's most likely AI slop. Somebody wrote a bad prompt, just got some content, didn't evaluate it, and put it to a website. And they've got, I don't know, very good SEO or something, so it's showing up in your feed. Practice. This is a practice. It's a new discipline. You know, when somebody gave you a car, you couldn't use it immediately. You need to practice this thing. Schwarz's law, I referenced before, do not take the output, or formally it's the output of an AI should never be put into production or public kind of consumption without the evaluation of a domain expert. Yeah? Or else you're contributing to AI slop, or you're going to get, in like Schwarz's case, very bad legal trouble. And just beware of the magic. This is so many times. I've seen people go through 5 days of workshops to tune these bad habits out, and then the next day see the cool new shiny thing, go like, wow, we can do anything. So practical example, some of us are in this European project, which is doing education stuff for creative industries. And a question, because they had seen a 3-minute clip that was AI-generated video, and the question was asked like, we're making all this new content, can we just have AI instructors saying it? Technically it's possible. It's very expensive. We calculated it, 35,000 euros computing costs to do all of the content. And also happened to have done some research in China they've been using AI presenters for the news for many years now, like so long that there's already academic research on the effect and the impact and the sociological dimensions. And it turns out when there's an AI presenter, a human can tell instantly, like within microseconds, this is not a real person. And when the brain makes that distinction, it stops absorbing information. So yeah, you saw some cool AI-generated video, but it's a terrible idea for doing educational lectures, because in the end, the observer is not going to take any of the information in. So no, and these are terribly useful when well used in a kind of deliberate way, but it's super easy to get taken away and go into like, we can do anything, and get disillusioned, maybe get in trouble, and spend a lot of energy that didn't need to be spent. So, I wanted to leave some resources like, how did I didn't go to university and do a master's in generative AI, because I don't think they really even exist. Maybe now they're coming online. And I'm self-taught, but these are resources that I've found that really took me from zero understanding to, about the level of what I'm presenting to you here. Probably best starting point is the Elements of AI course from Helsinki University. There's actually 2 of them. There's part 1 and part 2. It's free, and they have translated it into all the European languages, so you can even do it in Slovak if you prefer that. These Andriy Karpathy videos, they're great. They're quite long, and they do get at some point into the technical weeds, but he's really good, like effective communicator. And if you want to understand this kind of how the technology is working to predict these tokens and stuff, this article, it's very long, but once you've read that, you'll have no confusion as to what's going on within a generative AI machine. And you can have these slides if you want. All the links in them, they're live, and go to the resources. I think we started like 5 past, and we've 2 minutes. Maybe there's questions, comments, complaints. Yes.
Hi, I'm Veronica from Košice self-government region, and so my question is, what about safety of the data we put into these solutions?
Yeah. Okay. Very good question. This kind of goes back to the model selection and interface question. If, like most people here, you're just going to a website, then your data is, or first your prompts, and if you upload data, like in a retrieval augmented generation, you are putting it in the servers of the country that runs this particular thing. Most of them are American. If you use Mistral, it's in France, so it's in Europe and protected by European. If you use DeepSeek, you're sending it to China. That is true if you use the basic interfaces. If you download the model and you run it on your own machine, then you can eliminate all of those risks. And there are even some, there's a Swiss company called Argo, which allows you to use OpenAI models but on European servers, for example. It's one of these inference playgrounds, if you want. You can choose a model and you can choose to have it on European servers. I'm not at the point where I think like American bad, European good. If you take that position, like everything in America is bad, then you're really only left with Mistral. You know, and there's a European consortium building a foundational model too. And Mistral is very good for some text summarization things and multilingual things between European companies, particularly French. But it can't do some of the jobs I need it to do. And if one of those jobs requires me putting some of my data onto a server, then I'm going to be very careful that either I'm doing it like on my own hardware or on a server that I know is in a European legal jurisdiction and is protected by the data laws of Europe. So it's an issue you should think about. If you don't know anything more than just going to ChatGPT interface, you are open to risks. You know, and it says, just put your documents here to make this GPT. Think about that through. Don't blindly send your data wherever, and I'd be very reluctant to send certain kinds of data to China. There's other stuff I don't care about, you know, like if I've got my spreadsheet of my favorite ice hockey players and I want to put that up to do something fun with the thing, I don't care if China has that. If it's the addresses and financial information of all my former employees, I do care that China doesn't have that. So they're very good to think about it, but there are ways. It's not like, oh, well, too bad, we can't use this.
Okay.
For the streamers.
I'm sorry, yeah. I have maybe quite a personal question. You said that before that particular date, you were like zero or had zero recognition about that. Yeah. What was your previous like background or knowledge? Like, it was easier from your background to get into this, or it's for everybody?
Okay. My first career I was a theater director. That's why I'm a drama queen. Then I was in public administration for culture. Then I was in public services transformation. Then I was in innovation management. Most recently, the label is systems change consultancy. But like the common thing is everywhere I've been, there's been, like I helped introduce service design in a British municipal government and agile development. So I guess I'm quite often at the leading edge of some new technology or methodology or, you know, productivity ideology or what have you, and find some role in introducing that into particular domains. And that's been, these days, it's like creative industries, healthcare, public sector. Yeah. So I guess I'm like a Sherpa of new things to people. But this is going to get commoditized. You know, I don't know who your biggest company that you have a service relationship with, but in a few years they will offer you this kind of stuff as part of their service offering, and it might be good quality or it might be garbage. Yeah, it's just going to be ubiquitous. Like the AI is in all of your tools, everybody is going to be saying, oh, and we have the AI component to that. Get behind the speakers. Woo! More. I like a thirsty mind.
Yeah, I always like 80 questions have in my mind. It means that if you get, let's say, creative background and that background, it doesn't matter. But what is the maybe 3 top like qualities that you have? Because with this service design, I suppose that you have like super analytic mind. But what would be the
What's my
next
superpower?
things?
Yeah. I think the speakers get feedback. I don't know. I think all in all, like I'm anti-dogmatic. So when service design came, some people bought the religion completely and said you have to buy everything. From service design, I take that if you're going to be designing a service, you should understand the need of the user that's going to use the service. So that's the gold idea. Or in agile development, it says we cannot predict with any kind of certainty what the future will be in 3 years, but we can make a process that allows us to be less wrong the whole way. So from each of these fields and domains, like, what is the one thing that is useful, universal, and will travel through the future, even if this field dies at some point? And I don't know, if I have superpower, like I'm a pattern recognizer. I can see connections between different domains. I can see how my former colleagues in municipal government are thinking about this kind of technology, and that they're in an environment where the technical management is saying, no, you can't use things because it's too dangerous, and they don't want to answer questions like why, and how far can I go and not go, and why are you preventing me? So I think because having all these like multi-domain experiences, I can relate to something, but I don't know, maybe you disagree.
Well, Esko, you just blamed my, you served on my philosophical question, whether it's more useful from your part of view, you know, that you have a background in the private sector as well as public sector.
Yeah.
Should we be like more critical thinking or more aware, or how, you know, as you have said, scared about the AI within the usage within the public sector? Or are the like private sector easy adopters, let's say? Or how do you compare this one?
So in the public sector, usually the restriction on some new technology, and I was there when social media arrived, is because the people who have responsibility for technical security aren't interested or don't care. Like there is a solution, but it's too much work, so the answer is no, right? If you work in the public sector, I think you recognize this dynamic. However, what we see happening in America, where people who have high technical competence, but absolutely no understanding of how and why the public sector works in its way, are using these AI tools to, like, why does an island off of Australia that is uninhabited by humans and only has penguins now has 10% tariff? Because some idiot who doesn't understand trade was unleashed on all of the data of the US government with some AI tool who couldn't figure out that they made a decision to tariff an uninhabited island because of a mistaken labeling of postage, right? Like, that seems to be the original cause of why this has happened. So that's kind of, I don't agree with that. Just saying like, hey, everybody relax, it'll be fine, just do everything. We must be careful and competent. That's why I'm saying beware of magic. Evaluate, evaluate, evaluate. There is a lot of value to be had from these technologies. They're not going away. They're getting better all the time. In 1 year time, I have no idea what new capabilities this kind of stuff is up, but now is the moment where we shouldn't say too scary, don't use at all, and we also shouldn't say, oh, everything will be fine, just unleash AI everywhere. We have to explore what's the right balance between those. Yeah. I've also, I've been a conscript in the Finnish army, so between that and municipal government, I worked in very rigid, inflexible command and control hierarchies where you get sometimes bullshit orders, and it's not welcome to ask why. And when I left that, I kind of made a decision. I only want to put myself in context where asking why is welcome, right? That's how we make a progress, I think. These questions are more about me. Does anybody have a question about AI? Yeah.
Okay, I will have question, but before I will have two examples.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, on the same stage, we had like multi-city transnational meeting. There was also Espoo from Finland, and we
Another
got
one.
discussion about like how AI tools could be used in the work of municipality. I work for the municipality. I work for strategic development department,
Yeah.
dealing with so many topics. And for many of the cities, it was like absolute like news, like, oh, we can use AI tools, like we use it for write reports, documents, also applications and so on, also for some kind of deep research and so on. But 2 months ago, I was with guys from Oslo, from the climate office and procurement office, and they told me since 1st of January 25, they are forbidden to use those AI tools or tools that are feeding AI. Machine learning. So there, I witnessed just in this year two totally opposite of the same. And my question is, as you said that you are following patterns, what is the, let's say, beside writing documents and reports and so on, what should be, or what you can foresee, should be like the most useful domains where AI will be used mainly in providing municipal services? Because remember, most of them are like serving to people, like social thing and educational services. Where are the best fields where this will be used, or we can use or somehow develop?
Yeah. So, like, I think there's applications in bureaucratic efficiency. I remember manually going through thousands of fund applications for a fund that had very strict pass-fail criteria, like inclusion criteria. That's something an AI is pretty good at. Like, take the thousands, and if any one of them fails this criteria, put them into that box, and give me a reason and a link to the thing, so I can verify, evaluate. As a filtration process, that would save me enormous amounts of time. I can think of a bunch of different things that were like laborious, manual, paper form-based kind of processes, and that could really speed up. I would never want to put that data to a Chinese or American server, though. So it and if you don't know more, then I have a folder full of documents, I can put them into the knowledge base of a GPT agent, and you don't understand that you are sending it to America, then you're going to get in trouble. And of course people are going to say you can't do that. That's why we need to raise our literacy a bit and say, like, if you don't know more, you don't have that option, but I can come and make an argument and say, well, this is the model I'm going to use, this is how I'm going to verify the output, this is where the data is going to be stored, this is how I ensure that there's no data leakage anywhere. You know, like, it's not even going to leave this machine, for example. And you'll be familiar with shadow tech, right? Like around the time, 2008 sort of time, all these new web-based applications, you did Canva for design, things like that. And the municipality didn't know how to deal with that because we have procurement framework. If you're going to use technology in the government, it's because our department has evaluated and signed a contract and decided for you. And the tools that they gave us were completely garbage compared to the tools available on the internet. So we start using them on our own devices, yeah, because it's faster. So this shadow tech, that's a pattern. If you're not reasonable about your policy of how and allowing the use of AI, people are going to use it anyway. And maybe not in a safe and controlled manner, as could be. So, but shadow tech is a pattern, it's never going away. Next technology waves, if people see an advantage to it, they're going to start using it and go around the inflexibilities of municipal government IT. policy. Do you know anybody who got fired for using an app on their iPhone instead of the... No. I mean, I know a lot of stories of saying, you can't do that because it's really terrible, the world is going to burn and everybody's going to lose their jobs, but I've never seen somebody actually get fired. So people do it. We're humans, you know. We're like water. Find the least path of resistance to the goal. And this is another one of my worlds. It's like, so systems change is about complexity theory and systems thinking and understanding that our environments, they are complex ecosystems, not machines, right? And the mental model of our public administration organizations is still industrial era machine model metaphor. You can put rules and constraints on a machine, but they don't mean anything to what is actually an ecosystem full of nodes that have agency and just want to do the right thing, mostly. I've also met a few idiots in that scene. Did you all get that picture? Okay.
Thank you, Esko, for the first session.
I don't know if
For
online
questions.
anybody has questions, but well, nice to see you there, online people.
Thank you. Oh yeah, thank you to online participants, and have a nice day. Thank you. Okay. We will have a break for